What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Pardon the Disruption. We are going to have an amazing show for you today. We are fired up over here in the green room. First and foremost, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Matthew Potter, your esteemed host for the day. I'm your short sale expert, also your hedge fund connection, and co-owner of the Real Family Tree, powered by Real Brokerage. Go ahead and hit me up on that for some more details. For those that are just joining us for the first time, we super appreciate having you here. I'm going to give you a rundown of how we do this around here. There will be 6 total questions. 5 of them are pre-selected. 1 coming from our studio audience, so feel free to go ahead and message us at 33777 and preface that with question, and yours will be featured today. Each one of our guests, with the exception of Eric, will be getting 45 seconds to go ahead and answer each question. And then there will be 2 minutes that we are going to go ahead and chop it up afterwards, and a point will be awarded at my sole discretion, or I'll go ahead and take it to the audience. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and introduce our wonderful panel that is with us today. We're going to start off with Steve Trang.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am super excited for the show. If the energy in the green room is anything like this episode, it is going to be out of control. I've been doing business coming up for 16 years now. I've seen almost anything and everything that can happen inside this industry. I am excited for also our upcoming event on March 31st and April 1st, salesdisruptors.com. We have a live in-person sales training. Hope you guys can check it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And next, coming from the local McDonald's in York, Pennsylvania, we have Eric Brewer.
If you ever need a side job, you could do the voiceovers for Aquaman. Go ahead and clear your throat a little bit there, dude. My name's Eric Brewer. I'm a real estate investor out of Pennsylvania. Currently not at McDonald's. I'm in my office with windows, unlike our host. I've been known, I think, in like my 10th session now, so I've got some scar tissue as a real estate investor, actively doing about 350 deals a year, and have some coaching clients, and I'm blessed to be part of this crew that gets together once a week and has fun at each other's expense. So appreciate the opportunity to be here and looking forward to a good show.
Absolutely. And Steve, thanks for reminding me in the chat that Eric is -5 points already. Next up, we have Leon G. Barnes. Go ahead and talk to us, boss.
What's up, everyone? Leon G. Barnes, not RJ Bates III. Get well soon, my friend. Apparently, according to RJ, he has COVID-23. He's got that upgraded version of it, so he's working on that. Get well soon, my friend. I'm the director of membership of the Collective Genius, real estate investor, and all things information, according to the crew. Looking forward to today's show.
Awesome, Leon. And yes, absolutely. We're looking forward to RJ getting over his hangnail. Last but not least, we have CJ. Talk to us, boss.
Chris Jefferson, Richmond, VA, Charge Up University. Always fun to be here. Shout out to the guys, man. It's going to be a fun day. Everybody's energy is up. Powder's voice is elevated as well today, man. I'm excited and looking forward to it. So let's rock and roll.
Did you call it Potter or Powder? Which one was that?
Whoa.
It might be interchangeable.
All right, so Leon's -1 point. All right, we're going to go ahead and dive right on into it with our first question. I'm really excited for this one because I want to get all y'all's input on it. How do you see Americans drowning in credit card debt affecting real estate? Steve, start us off.
You know, this question sounds familiar. I think Chris and Leon might have brought it up a couple of episodes back. But, you know, as far as affecting real estate, I don't really foresee it affecting real estate that much. As far as I understand, debt-to-income ratios, they use the minimum payment for calculations. And because they're using the minimum payment for calculations, I mean, $100, that's going to affect you maybe $15,000 in what you can purchase, right? So I think at the end of the day, people, if they need a place to live, when they need a place to live, they're going to find a place to live. I don't really see this putting too much downward pressure on real estate. I'm more concerned about question number 5 affecting real estate than this one.
Ooh, precursor. I like it. All right, Eric, we know that you have no opinion on this one, so go ahead and lay it on us.
Your hole's getting deeper and deeper, dude. I think it's we can all speculate and try and guess at how this could potentially affect real estate. I mean, the right way to approach it is how has it historically affected real estate, right? Like there should be a pattern. There's some type of trend that once Americans reach a certain amount of credit card debt, and I think the one thing we're not talking about is maybe income, right? Like it all has to be taken into context. Your debt in comparison to the amount of money you make is the real testament, right? You could have $200,000 worth of debt. If you make $2 million a year, it's a minuscule amount of debt. So I think the proper thing to do before we make any assumptions about this or any other type of economic trend is go back and look at historically how that particular piece of information has impacted real estate. And you can probably rely on the future being in part a lot like what we've seen in the past.
So that's a vote for history will repeat itself. Got it. Leon, what you got?
I think we discussed this a couple weeks ago that short term, I don't necessarily seeing it affecting us currently. Interest rates obviously affected this market just not even a year ago now, but almost a year ago is where we saw the biggest impact overnight. But I think from a short-term perspective, I don't think we're seeing this. If you look at delinquencies and credit card debt, they're both up post-COVID, and they have both gone down during COVID. To Eric's point, it's hard for us to speculate this, but I think from a long-term, if I'm a landlord, I'm someone that's selling, that mid-tier property, something that's above affordable, below luxury, then I'm looking at the tea leaves and the potential trickle down of credit scores and things along those lines that would affect me as a landlord and or a home builder or someone that is fixing and flipping straight to retail. So I think from a long-term perspective, there is some potential trickle down from this.
Perfect. Right under there. All right, CJ, what you got for us?
Yeah, I think it has, I don't want to say really significant potential long-term impact, but I definitely think there's some there just in terms of people's totality in terms of their credit, right? When we get into an environment where employment starts to rise, where we see where job losses starting to occur in terms of layoffs and things of that nature, I think it really becomes a squeeze on people's, I think Eric or Steve said it, their debt to income when it comes to sustainability not to buy a home, but once they're already in a home, in order to maintain the property in terms of, their mortgage payment, things of that nature. So I think it could have some impact. I don't think we've seen it yet. Excuse me. I don't know that we'll see it either in the immediate future, but I do think it's something to keep an eye on and have some awareness around for sure.
Chop it up.
I think we are a little bit, Steve, just to the point of what CJ just said in regards to, scores and delinquencies, debt to income ratios. I'm starting to see it a little bit on the renter side as we're taking in property management in-house for the very first time. I'm starting to see that a little bit more as I have more involvement in it. Again, I don't see it, immediately affecting us, but you're starting to see some signs of credit scores and debt to income ratios having some effects on just the tenant, the type of tenant that we're getting.
Yeah. Actually, I was talking to Matt right before the show, and we're looking at because he's working with hedge funds, the way they project rent, right, is they say this is what we think rent's going to be like in this period of time, and we're wondering if part of the way they're projecting rent, because they're projecting rent to go have a downward pressure, is because they're expecting between inflation and affordability and credit card debt being at a certain limit that they're all projecting rents to go down, which it has. Rent's been going down in the Phoenix market for the last 12 months.
Yeah, and Reed brought this the other week, just a bigger question about how much debt people have taken on in the last 24 months. The ease of credit and access to it in the last 24 months has been, you could walk into the bank if you've got a solid credit score, you could get a loan pretty easily.
I don't think it was because of the ease of credit, though. I think it's because everyone got used to, being paid to stay at home. Right. I think there was so much free money out there, not even the line of credit. There was so much free money out there in COVID relief and then advancing people the child credit, right? Like all these things that were done were teaching people a certain behavior, but there was always a deadline to it. But once you get accustomed to a certain lifestyle, it's hard to cut back.
Well, that's my point, right? Like when people were at home for the first, 2 years of COVID, right? We were in a situation where people could take on more expense. You could buy more stuff on Amazon. You could buy more courses. You could do this and do that because you didn't have the normal day-to-day expenses that came with having to be on the go, right, on a daily basis as we, used to be normally. Now we've started to really kind of get back to that. People's expenses are starting to elevate again, and then they're going to have compressed pressure. If they get, job loss in the market, if the economy starts to get even more pressure than it's getting right now, can they sustain those minimum payment or not, right? And I think the effect on the housing market is ultimately people are going to take the hit on their credit first. When it comes to a credit card, instead of not paying their mortgage, they're going to try to get there. But eventually these things all start to merge into one thing. It becomes really problematic.
Yep.
Part of that is individually, right?
Yeah.
Something that we need to keep an eye on.
Definitely. Appreciate everyone's insight on that. I love that Steve tried to pull favor with me on that one by throwing out our previous conversation. Not gonna lie, it did work, so we're gonna go ahead and give that round to Steve.
Appreciate that.
All right, next up, how would you react if your leadership team or someone similar ousted you from your company, a la Steve Jobs 1985? Steve, start us off.
Well, first and foremost, I would be incredibly mortified. I mean, like, I know I don't convey a lot of feelings, don't show I have feelings, but I do genuinely care about the people around me. And if they decide that I am not fit to run the company, and one of the things I hang my hat on is my leadership skills, I would be just absolutely devastated if that occurred. With that said, I would just move on, right? I might burn the building down, but I would move on and start another business and move on. It might take me a month or 2 or 3 to recuperate, but then I would just start all over. I wouldn't dwell on it for like a long period of time. I would just rebuild, kind of like Steve Jobs did.
Fair. All right. I like it. The forgive and forget. Not even necessarily forgive, just more forget. All right, Eric, what about you? What are your thoughts, boss?
It's very thought-provoking, right? I think I appreciate Steve's transparency that I think we'd like to say that we wouldn't care. We would somehow be extremely resilient. But in an organization, mine and Steve's, and, the way that Apple was built is that it was built on our backs of blood, sweat, and tears. So there's part of me that would be extremely upset, probably embarrassed, but in the reality, it turned out to probably be a good decision at the time. And I would imagine and I would hope that I put enough of the right people around me that somehow my judgment was clouded. And thank goodness I had the right people in the right seats at my company, and they made the decision to oust me because I didn't belong here anymore. So yeah, it'd be upsetting, but I think there would be some satisfaction in the fact that they probably made the right decision. So it's easy to say probably from the sidelines when it would happen. And if it would happen, it might come out a different way, but sitting here on the sidelines, imagining what if, I'd like to think that that's how I'd respond.
Nice. All right, Eric. Leon, what are your thoughts?
I agree with the two of them when it comes to being ousted. Obviously, if it's your baby and you built it from the beginning, that it would be a struggle to have your team, kick you out of the business, your baby that you built. But I'm going to flip it a little bit in regards to what I hear from investors on a daily basis, which is they want to, how do I get to a level where I'm working on the business instead of into the business? And I would argue that, Steve and others that have been ousted as CEOs once they have big corporate takeovers or what have you, that they probably stayed in that role too long. Right? Everyone wants to scale, and scale means something different to everyone. But everyone that's listening to this, that's wanting to scale the business, you should have an exit plan. That doesn't mean that you leave business necessarily, but that means that you scale into something else. Eric's a great example of this. I have watched him empower his team so he can work on giving back and doing the things that he loves to do. Those are the type of things that you should be working on. One could argue that Steve stayed too long in his business and probably deserved, and to Eric's point, at the time, it was the right move.
Very insightful there. I like that. Okay. All right. CJ, what you got for us on this one, boss?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually piggyback along the thoughts of Leon, because I think you're devastated. I mean, when you become an entrepreneur and you start to build something, I mean, this is like your thing. I mean, you do it starting from the bottom with nothing in hand other than yourself and your mind. But I also think in business and in life, when you talk about scalability, when you talk about a business as big as Apple or any business that's big enough to have a true board of directors, a true CEO, they become operations within themselves that become much bigger than the owner or the founder. And so I think when you're in a situation where you've got leadership and sound leadership that you place around you that steps to you and makes the point that, maybe the business in terms of scalability and size has exceeded your level of knowledge or design, depending on what type of business you're in, right? I think that one of the flaws of Apple is that, Steve Jobs' limitation at that point in time may have been his eye for design or creativity that some other people could have brought some different leadership to the table to lead the company to that next era. So does it suck? Would it hurt? I mean, yeah, I'd probably cry like a baby if it happened. But again, I think once a business becomes its own entity within itself outside of its founder, I think it's, to everybody's benefit to run it, accordingly for sure.
Chop it up.
Yeah, I think one thing that we talked about in the past, right? Like it goes mission, then company, then individual. And in this case here, like the individual, it doesn't matter if you're the founder, right? If you're the leader, it's irrelevant. If the company cannot fulfill its mission with you in the way, you got to go.
Because if you fund or found rather a company big enough or that becomes large enough, right? And none of us have been able to get there yet, I don't think, right? But when you've got a business that can fully function without your involvement on a day-to-day operational basis, and you as a founder, you're leading the vision of that company that the company's trying to fulfill. I don't think it's unrealistic to say that somebody could get capped out on that based on what the original mission might have been, especially when you're talking about over the long term, right? These are companies that have been around for, I mean, how long has Apple been around? 40 years or something like that, right? Something insane like that. Economies change, consumer needs change, things ultimately change. And if you don't have the vision to see that through, then I think change has to happen. But that doesn't mean as the founder of it, it doesn't suck. I don't know if y'all seen the Uber series on Hulu, right? That talks about the founder of Uber, on how he eventually became ousted, from Uber because it became something bigger than itself. There was a lot of outside capital involved in different things that then has to be managed. And, I definitely think it'd be a tough situation.
Yeah, I mean, and let's face it, everyone that is an entrepreneur, most of us get a 3 to 5 year itch. We want to do something else. And quite frankly, like most big companies, it goes back to all the lid or the Peter principle. Certain leaders can get you to a certain point, and then to continue to grow and scale, especially at the level of Uber and Apple, you sometimes have to bring in other people to take it to the next level. Most times you have to bring in other people to take it to the next level. So I would, especially if we're talking about real estate investing businesses, those that are listening to this and watching this, you should always have a growth plan, because in order for you to keep absolute stars on your team, you have to be able to bring them up with you. And so as they're coming up with you, whose position are they going to take? You should be looking to hire people that could eventually replace you one day. That means the companies continue to grow and scale, and everybody has vision and opportunity.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Eric coaches on is actually a succession, right? So, is there something you want to add on top of that? Because I think that's a great point, Leon.
I would just say from a.
Oh, that was a great point.
Oh, he's success out.
Blatantly different than we've been accustomed to, is Viking grunting and just random shots that he takes people to get votes. If you listen to the depth of these answers, it's clear that there's, like Meek Mill says, there's levels to this shit. And you can tell with RJ not being here, the cognitive ability on this panel is well above the median. So little unrelated, just wanted to point that out. I felt the timing was right. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, when you make the decision to leave, it's completely different. When as the question is framed, is when you're right, it was a violent takeover. It's always going to be rough, but I think the plan should be always to build a business that can be sold. And by the time it gets to a place to where it's able to be sold, you probably want to sell it because it's relatively automated and profitable and can run without your interaction. So the plan should be, whether you're starting today in your first business, you just opened an LLC, you've been doing it for 15 years, should be to exit the business.
Absolutely love that Meek Mill made it into this conversation right now.
The mic drop, Matt. You're
I I
He
can't. I can't.
he was
believe it.
listing all of the things that were admirable around, about Potter. So that was
I think the guys
him.
can't hear you, Matt.
I'm good. I'm running off of 18. I'm running off an iPhone right now.
There it is. There it is.
There you go.
Steve,
Yeah, I
you
don't
want
know
to
what's
read
going
the third question?
Yeah. Let's see. I'm curious because Matt was talking,
We
but
can't hear
yeah,
Steve.
for whatever
Oh,
reason, you
we-
guys remember the metaverse, right? So
whatever that
Microsoft
is.
was Microsoft was acquired Activision, and then a couple weeks ago we found out like Congress was like trying to put a kibosh on this merger. I was like, that merger was last year. What the heck happened, right? And so that was where this question came from. And then it's interesting. Like in our market, we have Richard Ellis, CBRE, and it was basically the two largest commercial brokerages merged, and now they're the biggest by far, and they gobbled up a ton of market share. But yeah, I would say for us, right, if the top two merged, it wouldn't affect us because we would just keep doing our thing, right? It wouldn't we're not worried about what the competition is doing. We're just worried about what we're doing.
Thanks for the metaverse reference there, Steve.
Yeah,
That
we
really
needed
added
that.
some much needed color to the commentary.
Or just talking about Microsoft and Activision.
Thank
That's where the
goodness
question
you were
came
able to
from.
bring
I
that
apologize.
context, because prior to that, it was, Leon wanted to make sure it got recorded and it was live. I wanted someone to come punch me in my face while you were talking about Activision and the metaverse. Unfortunately, no one punched me in my face, and I had to listen to everything you said.
Well, we got a week and a half. I'm happy to deliver these requested services.
I'll wait.
All right. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
We can, unfortunately.
Oh, thanks, Leon. So good news is last question prior to this one, CJ won. So we're going to go ahead and get that point up on the board for him. This last question, I didn't hear any of it because we were fiddling with the audio. So by default, clearly Eric's not going to win. So I don't know. We'll just chop up the other point to everybody else, I guess, and get on to.
Eric had a pretty good answer.
I'm kidding. Actually, I did hear Eric's answer, and I've been giving him a rash of shit today, and rightfully so.
Somebody's in their feelings. Somebody's in their bag.
Anyways, so I'm going to give that one to Eric, and then I'm going to toss it over to Steve. He's going to go ahead and give you a word from our sponsors.
All right. So with capital thinning in today's market, it is crucial for real estate investors to be able to build relationships with reliable lenders to access the capital that they need. This is where Kiavi comes in. Whether you're flipping houses or investing in rental properties, Kiavi offers fast approvals, high leverage, and reliable capital to close more deals in any market environment. Through their easy online process and dedicated support, you can access the flexible loan options that can help you scale your business confidently. Go to kiavi.com/real estate disruptors to learn more and download your pre-qual letter in minutes. Terms and conditions do apply. Please see kiavi.com for further details about potential loan options. And definitely with Kiavi, it's always been a good experience. And, when everyone was freaking out with the rate hikes, they were always there to lend as necessary.
Absolutely. Thank God Steve is back reading that, and we did not have to hear RJ's rendition again. Next up, how honest do you think people portray real estate investing across social media channels? Just to clarify, I did give that last round to Eric Brewer since, we're, both bald brothers and both were down on the internet going on today. So, Brew Crew, start us out. What's your thoughts?
I would say it's generally horrible.
And you get canceled.
Ouch.
We cannot have this on this
I think
channel.
from the outside looking in, what did I miss? What happened there? What
No, you're
dropped.
good.
You said.
You said they're a bunch of liars and you got canceled.
Basically, that's kind of what I said, though, to be honest. I mean, I think externally from the outside looking in, people outside of real estate investing generally look at, influencers and investors, and there's a sleazy sort of kind of feeling to it. And I think it's been earned, to be quite honest. And then internally, I think there's a general group of people, much of which are on this call, that do a lot of business, and we do good business, and we influence people in a positive direction. Where the same sort of visibility is accomplished by people, and they do it what I would consider to be the wrong way. And that's just a personal preference, but I would say generally real estate investors are right up there with like dentists and used car salesmen, right? It's like you shake their hand and you kind of double check to make sure that your wallet's still there. And it's up to us to kind of break through that barrier and prove people wrong. But until then, I think rightfully so, the public generally has a scummy sort of perception of what we do.
Used car salesman. Next up, Leon, what are your thoughts on this one, boss?
Yeah, this has increased significantly over the last 3 years as more millionaires were made, I think, in real estate investing than any other time with, the run up of COVID and lack of inventory and hedge funds buying. It had a bit of a perfect storm. It's interesting now that things have gotten hard. What I'm continuing to hear from that same investor is, I want to get into coaching. Right? Because they see it as, or I want to get into influencing. And, I would just, for anybody that's watching this, that is considering hiring someone to help them with the business, I would just get stats, get information from them of what do they have a model that is sustainable, reoccurring revenue from a actual real estate investing business. I can speak for my CG and my partner Disruption brothers that, for those that are out there like the Erics, the Chris's, the RJs, the Steves, they're doing legit business. And it's unfortunate, but I would argue that there's other industries that have the same thing. Attorneys feel the same way about those that are chasing ambulances. We have them as well, obviously. It's unfortunate, but there are the good thing is we have some good people out there that are spreading good word and actually doing the business. And we've got a good number of them represented on this show.
Absolutely. Steve used to always say this, show me the HUDs. Show me the HUDs. CJ, what are your thoughts, boss?
I think real estate in terms of the internet, man, and honesty is a very interesting topic, right? Look, let's face it this way. Real estate's like a sexy business. It always has been since as far back as I can remember. I was born in 86. As far back as I can remember, real estate was the sexy business. If you were in real estate, I mean, this is how Donald Trump got popular. Some of these other, high-flying developers and stuff like that. And I think there's an awareness inside of the real estate industry, especially in the educator space, where people play on this perceived sexiness, or thought process that people have about this glamorous business that you can get into and make untold riches and have mansions and Ferraris and you'll be a millionaire in 30 days and all these different things. And I think this is a hard ass business, man. I tell people all the time, I think this is a business that you really got to be prepared for, not just physically, but I think mentally more importantly. And I don't know that that's talked about enough across the board. I think it should be more of a conversation really in terms of my greatest lessons in this business have all come from losses I've taken in the business. That's how you fail forward and you learn from your mistakes. But everybody kind of portrays this, everything's perfect. The business is perfect. Never lost money on a deal, never had a legal issue, this, that, and the third. And I don't know that that's a great thing for the industry. I think that's why we're dealing with a lot of people looking to regulate. So, those are my 2 cents on that for sure.
Very, very nice dive there. Steve, that's where the buzzer was, okay?
I mean, that was a great 5-minute
Hey, I need
monologue.
you to calm down over there. -4 points. All right, Steve, talk to us. What are your thoughts?
Just trying to carry you guys, man. I didn't know if your mics and stuff.
I think I have a different opinion on this. I think that this is like the best I've seen it because I think it was started really shoddy, right? Like we went from the infomercials at 3:00 in the morning to social media and everyone saying the same exact message, right? It was just an updated message, but it was pretty much the same message. Get into this business. You don't need any money. You can start today, right? And they're just showing either cashier's checks or actual cash or a bundle of cash using it as a phone. I think it's a lot better today. It's not great, but it's gotten a lot better than it was before. I think, we don't have the shiny Prince boots anymore. We don't
Is it
have
better?
as many.
Does it just look different? Right.
I think there's more people talking about their deals, right? You look at like Eric's post, right? He's talking about like, here's an innovation deal that someone did. You look at Pace's post, right? He's just sharing his deals. I think they just RJ, right? Everything is freaking. This is RJ. Every freaking post. This is RJ. So like we're seeing actual examples of real deals being done. So I think it's gotten significantly better. Does it have room to improve? 100%. But I don't think it's nearly as bad as it was even 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
But Steve, you're talking about the people that represent the industry, in my opinion, at the highest level and the most honest level to the question.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about all of the newbies within the last 1 to 3 years that got into this business that are showing checks that we all know that just because the check says 20 grand, that doesn't mean that's 20 grand profit, right? So, that's introducing, that element over the last 3 years is specifically what we're talking to. And I will say, like to Chris's point, this business is tough. It really is, but it's no tougher than anything else. With execution and focus, you can do it. But unfortunately, sometimes when you see those $20,000 checks, and I didn't have to do anything for it, it can be very misleading. But shout out to Ron LeGrand. You were talking about people that had the late night infomercials and things like that. I know a lot of people that got their start from Ron LeGrand and Carlton Sheets that have done very well in this business. And the same thing goes for influencers today. There are a lot of people that will make a lot of money because of some of the influencers that they're following.
I agree with that. More what I mean too is when people have this exterior perception, I think like Eric was talking about, of what real estate is, what it looks like. You got people that get into the business all the time, and in their mind, the concept of losing money doesn't exist, right? You have, people that, go and pick up investments. They're not fully educated on what that should look like because maybe it was presented to them in a manner in which it was super simple to get done. I think that's a danger zone for sure that we should probably address more in the future for sure.
Did Eric compare dentists to car sales guys?
Well, dentist tells you something's wrong with your teeth, man. It's your teeth. I know what he's talking about, man. You're like, I got to pay whatever.
Enlighten me. I have never heard this comparison before.
It's from a Consumer Reports article that rated consumer experiences. And there was like literally dentist was the worst thing. No one ever wants to go to the dentist. Number 2 was buy a used car. Number 3 was buy or sell a home. So they talked about the least desirable consumer experiences. It was a article from Consumer Reports a few years ago. So that's where that's
fascinating.
Well,
I've never heard that.
I mean, I can tell you, anytime you put a drill in someone's mouth, that's not going to be a favorable experience, nor should you score high.
Leave me a 5-star review on the way out.
If I have smoke coming out of my mouth, that's a problem.
It's a thankless job.
It is not a thankless job. I know several dentists that do very well for themselves. On that one, I'm going to go ahead and give that one to CJ. Main reason why is he touched on, everybody did. But CJ really took it a little bit deeper with the look. Calm down, y'all. He took it deeper with the look. It's not sexy. There's losses. There's big losses. There's a lot of people, I think, that honestly we probably even know from the last year, 2 years, they're probably not even in the game anymore. So I really like that, you went down that rabbit hole. Next up.
Both of you did. We heard his answer. You could have just voted for him. You didn't have to restate his 5-minute response.
Okay. -5 points for Eric again. All right. Number 5 with
at this
Walmart.
Point, what's it matter? You know what I mean?
With Walmart, Amazon, and other big retailers announcing permanent store closures, how concerned should we be about this economy? CJ, start us off.
I feel like it's really hard to say at the moment. I think there's pause for concern. I just don't know that we know how concerned to be yet. And what I mean by that is we've seen explosive growth in the last 3 to 5 years in terms of the economy, in terms of, consumer spending, retail stores, things of that nature. And I think a lot of that's resetting. I think a lot of that growth or in terms of stores and things like that are starting to reset. And that could be a good, it could be a bad thing. So I don't have a full opinion. I think as far as is it bad right now, I think that it is. I don't think the data shows that it is. But as with everything, I think we're kind of in the middle road of this economic cycle at the moment. And I think that there's been so many variables. Everybody's having a hard time landing the plane on exactly where this thing is going to go.
All right, Steve, what are your thoughts on this one? I know this is a question that you definitely wanted to dive in on.
Well, it's not that I so much want to dive in on it. I think it's a big cause for concern. I think that credit card debt. It is. I think just people's behavior. They're not getting used to how things have changed. Right. Like we had big changes, and they're not ready to reset their behavior. Stores closing. I mean, I think this is where the Feds have been wanting to basically put a giant freeze on the economy, cause a recession, force a recession, so that we can slow down demand, and it's happening. And this is what we've talked about on the show for months now. Is like they keep raising the rate. They could just pause and just see what happens. And so now this is the beginning of seeing the effect of raising the rates. Now we got maybe 6 or 7 more rates to have it kind of play through the cycle and see what actually happens in 2024. So I think this is the beginning of us actually feeling the pain, the country suffering like the Fed wants. And I think this is where I say 2023, I think it's going to be just fine for real estate, but I am concerned about 2024.
Okay. Looking a little into the future there. I like it. All right. Eric, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm anxious to hear Steve explain to us how those stores will open up shortly in the metaverse. So stay tuned. I'm sure when we chop it up here at the break, he'll tell us all about that. Literally a year ago, he told me it was the next thing. He was packing up shop, and he was going to trade everything in for a few NFTs and move to the metaverse, and it was going to change his life. Craziest thing I've ever heard, but turns out it didn't work out. Who would have thought? I think when you look at the stuff like credit card debt and Walmarts and stores closing, when you look at any isolated piece of information, it's easy to get distracted. We've seen a lot change with like online retail. We've seen a ton change with brick and mortar offices. We've seen a ton change with the way people buy and sell products. Right? Like you don't even walk into Walmart anymore to buy a Sony PlayStation. You're probably going to buy it on the secondary market from someone that's flipping it. Like literally anything that has any type of demand today is being flipped. So it could be an isolated piece of information that we blow out of proportion and say it's the economy and all this other stuff. I'd want to take a step back and see how it fits into the greater context of what's going on. And I would say anytime a door closes, another one opens. Certainly there's an opportunity that's created as a result of these big box retailers closing down stores. It's going to push that opportunity, that commerce, that money somewhere else. And the goal should be to figure out not why it happened, but where the new opportunity is.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably in the metaverse. Leon, what are your thoughts on this one?
Concern, of course. I mean, this is different from what we've seen over the last 3 years, but guys, this is recalibration. We were living in an unrealistic world for the last 3 years. We thought that COVID was going to kind of level things out, and it actually was rocket fuel to the economy, as well as on the real estate side. So, I would proceed with caution. We have this conversation quite often when it comes to luxury builders and luxury flippers. Mid-tier builders, those type of things when it comes to the real estate world. I would definitely proceed with caution, but it's recalibration. We've had an unbelievable run, and it continues. It continued all the way into last year. So I would just proceed with caution. CJ has said this before. There are 3 things that people have to have: food, water, and shelter. We happen to be in the shelter business. To Eric's point, find that lane that fits your business best, proceed with caution, and focus on growing that particular lane that makes sense. There's always a solution when there's a problem.
So, Leon, I just want to go on the record. Leon did not answer the question, even though he's the most informed.
I said out of the gates, we should be concerned and proceed with caution. You are not listening, Steve.
It's about the economy, not us.
This is not the first time Steve has not listened.
You are the active listening coach on this call.
Listen, I got some real estate on the metaverse I'd like to wholesale to you guys.
Yeah, I bet you do.
No, we're not going to dive any deeper on this one. We're just going to leave it alone.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing, we're talking about the stores closing, but really the impact here is not really the stores closing, it's all the employees, right? How many employees are going to be displaced, and what they're going to be doing as far as jobs. The jobs markets, the jobs reports are always consistently good, so they'll probably just go get another job just fine. But these are the things that we're looking at. It's not about the stores closing in particular, right? Because that doesn't really affect things as much as the people losing their jobs. That is the things that will affect demand, and we'll see how that plays out in the economy.
Okay. Oh, we're taking the short version on that one. I like it. Just because Eric gave Steve a rash of shit about the metaverse, like I'm gonna have to give Eric that one. Like,
What?
I have to. I'm sorry. Like
What?
I look. He just needs that point. I'm sorry. I have to. And by the way, I'm actually not apologizing for that. That was absolutely epic. Last question coming from, I mean, I'm slightly biased, but probably one of the smartest people on the planet, my wife. What was the hardest decision you've taken as a leader, and what helped you to prompt the best course of action? Go ahead and start us off, Eric.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What was the hardest part? What's the question again? What was the hardest part or decision we've had to make as a leader?
What was the hardest decision you've had to take as a leader, and then what helped you to prompt the best course of action?
Okay. I would say the hardest part was for me to fire myself in my business. After my business grew beyond, I don't know, probably 8 or 10 employees, my ability to be able to be a good salesperson and a good marketer was no longer valuable to the company anymore. The company needed a leader. They needed a competent manager. They need someone that was actively recruiting. And it was difficult, right, to hire a COO in my business and start to turn over the day-to-day decisions that had, for 15 years, really become part of my fiber. And it was like this big thing I thought was going to be a relief, because everybody that gets into business talks about this day that they could step aside. And my reality was, when I stepped aside, I drifted into like this mild state of depression, because making those decisions, and as much as I complained about it, being in the middle of chaos was fulfilling to me. So I slowly had to learn how to gain fulfillment from, doing other things in the business that were, quite frankly, long overdue. But I wasn't willing to make the change as a person to be that person and be that type of leader. And for me, I leaned into, quite frankly, collective genius. I was fortunate to be, surrounded by a bunch of other people that have either were going through the same path or, had been through it. And I implemented EOS about 6 years ago, and that was the thing that slowly started to educate me on the historically correct way to run a business and lead people. And it's been everything to, where I've gotten today.
That's dude, I'm not gonna lie, that's actually gold. Like, I know I love to bust your chops, but that's gold. I appreciate that right there. Leon, what are your thoughts on this 2-part question?
So the hardest decisions, typically as a leader, everyone on this show today has done it. It's letting go of human beings. There's, whether it's layoffs because your business, the market shifted and you needed to do that. I know Eric and I had that conversation when that happened. When the market shifted, every business had to recalibrate. Going back to what we were just talking about with Walmart and all these other companies, closing stores, they're recalibrating based upon their goals and where the market is today. Those are super hard decisions, even when getting rid of employees that are not meeting KPIs and consistently doing the job that you've hired them to do. That's a really tough decision to make. But on the other side, generally, when you make those decisions, to CJ's point earlier, you're doing what's best for the business and not necessarily what's best for one individual. So those are the hardest. A sneaky second that is, a less, I guess, from a standpoint of personal and emotional, is, quite frankly, is just delegating some of the day-to-day tasks that we all think as leaders that we are the only ones that can do them at a high level. Sometimes those are the hardest decisions to make in your business, of letting go, especially as you grow and scale as a real estate investor. So the first is always letting go of human beings. And the second would be just replacing yourself, to Eric's point, on even some of the most minute little things that you do on a day-to-day basis.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, no, I like that. I do like that. CJ, what are your thoughts?
Hardest decision, I actually shared this when I did Steve's podcast back in 2020. I'll never forget the day. Still, I was at a point in business where things weren't going the way that I needed them to or wanted them to, and was just really frustrated about my lack of progress in not just management but scaling at that time. This was in 2017. There was somebody in the same office building as me that had a consulting business that I had heard about from some other small business owners in town, and I just walked into their office. The lady who was one of the owners was on the phone. I sat down at her desk in tears. She asked me how she could help me, and I told her that I felt that I got my business to the highest extent of my ability at the time, and I just simply needed some help. And I heard that they could offer some help. To date, this has been one of the best decisions I've ever made. Not having enough pride to sit down in front of somebody and simply ask for some help. And a lot of things that I'm doing and have done since 2017 have been a direct result of that relationship and just going and seeking some guidance. So it was a hard decision to put my pride to the side at the time, but it's paid out tenfold.
Yes, definitely. Steve, what about you?
I'm gonna feel really tough to follow all these answers. I would say number one for sure by far was deciding to partner up with Eric Brewer on a project. That was definitely the worst, most difficult decision I ever made. But then following up after that was, last year. I've shared a lot, right? Like, we had to make a decision on what expenses we were going to cut. And I know the consensus, not the consensus, but the overall majority says, you got to let people go, And I made the decision to not let people go at the expense, of revenue, right? Because we had to cut back marketing to keep everybody. But for me, it was not as important to me to make money in 2022 as it was to make sure I had all the right people for when things shifted in 2023 so that we could, take over massive market share with the right people. Because finding people is so freaking hard, So for me, I made a conscious decision to not try to make profit, right? Not lose money, but not focus on profit, but to keep the people so that when things change, I will have the best team in the Phoenix market. So that was a tough decision because that was not the popular decision. Did we lose Matt again?
You guys gonna chop it up at all? There goes Eric.
Oh, we didn't lose him. He's there.
Yep, there he is.
Yeah, I want to add to what CJ said there. Man, I commend you for that, my friend. To be able to say that, I feel like I've gotten to a certain point and to ask for help. We as entrepreneurs don't do that often enough. That's why communities like ours have been around for almost 13 years now. Collective Genius people come into this organization to be around other like-minded individuals because, like to Eric's point earlier, he had gotten everything he had ever dreamed of getting to a CEO level, and then realized that he no longer had day-to-day duties and importance in the business as much as he did, just the day before. And being around people and having the ability to say, instead of banging your chest and saying I'm great, and saying I need some help here, and can you help me through those things? The focus of all of these type of hard decisions, one thing that we say a lot in CG is we try to focus on where the puck is going and not where it is today. And sometimes the hardest decisions are making decisions so you can make the best decisions for the business long term.
Yeah, this was a great question by Nicole. And I think that, got slightly different answers, but I think these are all, for everyone that's listening, something to look forward to, right? Because you're going to face one of these challenges, and hopefully, you're more prepared for it than we were when we ran into this situation. There was a question in the audience about Eric's outfit. Matt, you want to read it?
Yeah, no, we're going with a special a bonus question here. Always love when we have an interactive audience. Question number 7: does anyone know why is Brewer wearing a hospital gown?
What's interesting is, for me, and I'm the youngest guy on the panel, but when I first saw it, I thought it was a piece of Blue's Clues memorabilia, and I thought that it was just like he went to like one of those gift shops, man, at Nickelodeon. You got that classic Blue's Clues, man.
Just because they don't sell it at Ross, there's no need for you to hate. The thread count on this thing is 10 times anything you guys have ever seen. So.
It's Egyptian cotton.
Overcompensating, I think.
Look, we got through we had Henri Eric to start in the green room, and you guys, we didn't have him the entire show. Now you're going to try to bring out Henri Eric. Come on.
I wanted to see the Hulk come out.
I'm good.
Look, those were all very, very great in-depth answers. I love all you guys for sharing that. That being said, I'm gonna go ahead and pull a card, and RJ can talk some trash next week when he's back from his ingrown toenail. We're gonna go ahead and take it to the audience. Audience has voted CJ. CJ has finally broken his 13-week consecutive losing streak. We're gonna go ahead and give this one to CJ. He earned it today. He did. So we're very happy for him to be back on Team Win. But that being said, thank you everybody for joining us today. It was a blast. All kidding aside, Eric, we absolutely love your threads. They're amazing. That being said, we're going to go ahead and sign off here. CJ, start us off as the winner. What you got?
Chris Jefferson, Richmond, VA, man. StartFlippingDeals.com. It's Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you guys on the webinar if you're going to be there. Peace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Steve, go ahead and send us off, boss.
Yeah, I was really hoping to get a little more of a fiery Eric, but Eric, I think he turned into Bruce Banner once the camera started. But I think the questions were awesome, and I think the depth of the answers today was probably one of the deepest shows we had. We promised it was gonna be fun. Instead of being fun, we went deep. But I still think incredibly valuable. So hopefully you guys got a ton of value out of it. And again, we do have our event coming up a month from now. Go to salesdisruptors.com if you want to attend our live in-person 2-day training event.
Awesome. Hey, Eric, just so that you know, my wife did go ahead and drop in the chat. We do have some towels that are like that, so I just want to let you know I'm on the same fashion train as you, brother.
Let me go.
Go ahead.
If you can see the full ensemble, as Leon knows, it's all about tying together with the shoes. And there's a famous movie out there that talks about how you got to coordinate, right?
My brother Eric is a coordinator, that's for sure.
So, just to explain myself, I've always been a man of the people, and a true man of the people knows how to work the crowd. And when I showed up today, it was clear that Hawk Eric, Angry Eric was not the vibe. So, I decided to dial it down a little bit and work the crowd and stay consistent with the vibe today, because your tribe is your vibe. And on Thursdays at 2:30 Eastern time, this is my tribe. So, anyway, I just appreciate being here. I appreciate all the thought and effort from the listeners and the people that tune into YouTube, and Steve and his staff and Potter and everybody else that prepare these questions, because every time we see that we have a great episode, it always comes back to the thoughtfulness that's put into the questions, and then we just get to show up and kind of talk smack for an hour. So I just appreciate the opportunity, love being here, and look forward to next week.
Absolutely, man. Could not have said it better. By far one of my favorite hour and 10 minutes, mainly because nobody's ever on time. Leon, send us off, boss.
Yeah, Leon G. Barnes, to Eric's point, appreciate the platform. This is fun. I love being a part of this tribe. There's lots of great information from lots of years of experience that no gurus here on this panel. Much appreciated. I do find it ironic, though, is that I am the one that pushed for a judge, and we do have that judge now, but I'm pretty sure he's drawing straws in the back to see who wins each round. So maybe we can work on that as we continue to move forward. And I'll leave you with that.
Yeah, we can always go back to the old model, man. We can always
Leon, I apparently did not send you my Cash App so that you can go ahead and start buying off points. So I'll go ahead and drop that in a separate text to you. No worries. We'll get you taken care of.
Matt's the biggest affiliate for the U.
Man, and I crash at your pad.
Yes.
Give me the Brewer towels, baby. I want the Brewer.
Bro, I'm talking soft.
Egyptian cotton.
Oh, man. Everybody, thank you for joining us today. We hope you had as much fun as we did. We love spending an hour and 10 minutes. Everybody, we'll see you next week.
Peace out.